Welcome back. We are talking about GSTs and subsidies, and from what we understand that the subsidy bill in Malaysia for 2013 is said to be in the region of 37.6 billion ringgit. Some are saying this is a bit too much and we don't know where the money is going to come from. So, YB, what do you think about this subsidy bill? How do you think this is going to play out next year?
Well, my biggest concern when I hear subsidy rationalization, we need to cut down on costs and so on and so forth, is that the victim is going to be the poor man or woman or the single mother. This is my biggest fear though. There are two kinds of subsidy that we have in Malaysia. Subsidy for the rich, subsidy for the IPPs. By the way, 3 o'clock today there will be a announcement on the increase in tariffs. Subsidy for the IPP, subsidy for the rich, including the rich Bumiputras as well. But what you have is now a situation whereby lots of Bumiputras have become very poor. And lots of Indians and Chinese, even Chinese for the matter, and the indigenous communities. So what is this rationalization about though? Is it to take away money away from the poor, the little money they already have, or subsidies they have, or is it trying to have a system whereby we use whatever limited amount of money that we have in order to push this country further to another level though? Essentially, the question that you raise is an important one because it's about the way or the prudence in which you manage the economy, the finances that you have. This is a challenge, and Malaysia has lost in this challenge though. It is clear that we are in the last 15 years or maybe 16 years now that we are running a deficit. Although our incomes are increasing, but we're running a deficit though. So where is this money going though? This is something that we have to look at. Now, having said that, one of the reasons why GST is being put forward or being pushed is because of the various leakages the government says that takes place, and that is true. There's a lot of leakage, especially involving transfer pricing. Now, this involves big organizations, big companies that actually, because of their intra-firm trade that they do, they transfer the cost all over the place and don't pay the minimum amount of taxes. Now, this shows that the government has not been efficient. Customs has not been efficient to catch the problem and so as to increase the revenue of the state. So I think while we talk about subsidy rationalization, what we also should do is to identify a set of priorities in terms of leakages. Where are the big leakages? Who are the people responsible? And begin to slash that though, before touching the quality of life or the meager quality of life of the working class in this country.
Mr. Tan, leakages and subsidies don't go hand in hand. What are your thoughts?
True. The leakages and subsidies, we have to look at subsidies has to be channeled to the correct people. It cannot be channeled to foreigners staying in Malaysia. It cannot be channeled to people that selling it to foreign countries, smuggling. So the poor should be the targeted group for the subsidies. So previously we have seen that in RON 97, our petrol is even subsidized. That's absurd. So now it's no longer subsidized and only RON 95 is subsidized. In fact, to me, is that you must make sure all the subsidies are channeled to the poor, not to the rich. If the rich, they are entitled to a subsidy of cooking oil, which they don't need such subsidy, then that is wrong policy. Subsidies has to be reduced gradually in future. The political will must be there from both divides, whether it's from the opposition or from the government, must work together in reducing the subsidies and make sure that it goes to the correct people. In some countries, like Egypt, you even have a system whereby coupons are given to the poor, and for a certain amount of quantity, depending on the number of family members. So these are the things that we can study in Malaysia, that a coupon system. Only those entitled are given those coupons to subsidize their essential items like cooking oil, sugar. Sugar is not subsidized now, but perhaps sugar can be given for them. Those really need it. We can see that subsidy also affects our livelihood. Certain people require cheaper petrols to be a taxi driver. So again, they should be given some form of assistance, but it cannot be to the extent that everyone benefits from it. That is not should not be the purpose of subsidies. And to some extent, subsidies are affecting our health. previously people opposing that sugar should be subsidized. They say that sugar must still be subsidized, but that is wrong. You get diabetes everywhere.
I like the idea on the food coupons, but I think a lot of people out there will say we can't even get our Malaysia Cup tickets sold properly. This is going to create a lot of, like how we said earlier, enforcement is an issue. Mr. Kumar.
Yep. There might even be people in the black market selling these coupons, like the scheme buku pinjaman and all that. Subsidy, no, we must accept. We are still a developing country. There are many Rakyat of a country not so fortunate. They need to be assisted by the government. Sugar subsidy is one subsidy I really can't see that rational, because it only benefits certain sector of the economy. And I don't think so we need to consume so much of sugar in our daily routine. Is used to subsidize certain business. Rather than, to your question, where is the money going to come from? Where is the subsidy going to? $1 billion question to answer. But GST, I have to respectfully disagree with YB Charles on GST as a mechanism to what you call manage transfer pricing. GST would not be able to manage transfer pricing. We have a transfer pricing mechanism in Malaysia. It's being enforced, and coincidentally, the first transfer pricing case was just determined in Malaysia in January this year, and 5th of February this year. I acted for the taxpayer with my colleagues, and we won. The revenue lost the case, and not because the taxpayer was siphoning money out of Malaysia. The taxpayer had an honest business in this country. It's a multinational, and they don't have any major transfer pricing issue in other parts of the world. But it comes down to the issue of, because the government needs money, and is now open secret, the government announces its collection target every year, how much they need to collect, and officers are expected to go and collect. And this results in arbitrary assessments from time to time. And recently, our superior courts have recognized this position. And in fact, as early this year, the Court of Appeal, in a very strongly worded judgment, has stated that exercise of statutory power by a government officer must be done with necessary precautions, whereby you must always act within the realm of the law, and you cannot take advantage. You cannot abuse it. And when the exercise is done for an inadmissible purpose, or on irrelevant grounds, or without regard to any relevant considerations of gross unreasonableness, courts interfere. And the judge stated here, not my words, judge's word, the Revenue Department is not an exception to the said jurisprudence. So courts have said in various occasions they must draw a balance between the right of the taxpayer and the right of businesses to pay tax. Now, taxes is the main revenue of the government to develop the country. But to what extent do you go raise taxes? As a taxpayer, you pay not a cent more, not a cent less. That's a fair position. But the chaps who are paying taxes now are being squeezed to pay more taxes. See, the revenue for the target for income tax collection has gone up. 7 years ago, it was barely 75 billion ringgit. Today, it's 140 billion ringgit. But number of taxpayers have reduced. So you're asking the smaller group of people to pay more taxes when you're already paying taxes. But there is no initiative from the government to go and collect taxes from the other 10-15 million people who are not paying a single cent in tax.
Okay, let me just jump in here though, and this goes back to the issue of transfer pricing. If you read Idris Jala's speech a couple of months ago, where he outlined the need for GST. And one of the reasons he put forward the need for GST is to ensure, put forward GST was because there were many leakages. And one of the leakages was transfer pricing.
Oh.
That's the context in which I raised the issue. So if the government actually closes that leakage, or at least tries to get a 75% handle of that leakage, then your revenue stream begins to increase substantially, though, because the concern is transfer pricing is huge, very significant, and therefore he said that's one of the reasons why. It's because we can't control transfer pricing, we want to do GST. This is the wrong approach. Deal with transfer pricing. Get your customs guys on board. Get them to go and do the work. Get people, get the program running, whatever software you need to do, get it done, collect the money though. Then in that way, you make corporations responsible for their investments in Malaysia. So Malaysia does not just become a place where you make money and transfer the money out though. So I think when we talk about taxes, it comes with responsibilities. As individuals, we use roads, we use government hospitals, we pay for those things. The same way, corporations use our bus, our transportation, our infrastructure, sometimes they're subsidized. They don't even pay for electricity though. But on top of this, they now transfer the money out of the country. So it's no investments for them. Real investments, none. Because you get subsidies, and on top of that, you take money out of the country though. So you have to plug it. You really have to plug it. And this is where government comes. So government has to regulate. I get the feeling sometimes that it's the business that's regulating government now though, and no longer government regulating business though. So when the business cannot regulate government, government cannot regulate the business, it comes to the people and say, you people pay up though.
This is setting up to be a interesting last segment of the show. So when we return, we will definitely talk more about how businesses are controlling the government these days. Stay tuned.